Hey fellow Wargamers, it's D and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at a Viking Warband from Victrix with the Pillage wargame, a natural, let's say unfriendly neighbor for our Saxons from the previous episode. This is episode 2 of our unboxing series for Pillage, and as promised, the Rus and Norman warbands will be hitting the review table shortly. As is tradition with Victrix, the sprues come in a zip bag rather than a box. Despite my worries, the package arrived safe and sound, with no bent or broken bits at all. This warband set, like the others for Pillage, retails for about 45 USD, which for 36 miniatures is an absolute bargain in my humble opinion. So, let's take a quick look at what we get in this bag of plastic goodness. This Viking Warband gives you 36 miniatures, 6 command models, meaning you can build 1 chieftain, 2 berserkers, a standard bearer, a musician, and an armored warrior. 12 more armored warriors or Hirdman, 12 unarmored warriors or Bondi, and 6 missile troops, your choice of archers or slingers. Unlike the Saxon set, there is no sprue here to pillage javelins from for kitbashing skirmishers. However, Dan and I put our heads together and I think we've come up with a pretty clever solution for that. Don't forget that there are no bases, decals or shield transfers in this set. You'll have to purchase those separately. Alright, let's jump straight into our first sprue, the creme de la creme of the whole set, the command sprue. As I mentioned, you can build 1 chieftain, 2 berserkers, a standard bearer, a musician, and an armored warrior. However, that doesn't mean you are locked into building berserkers or a musician if you don't want or need them. There are enough parts in this sprue to build all 6 as regular armored warriors with a variety of hand weapons or Dane axes. One of the banner poles is made of 2 pieces, so when you get your banner ready, dry fit it against either pot T1 or T2 to figure out which one you need. Here are 2 hats for the models that can be built as either a berserker or a regular armored warrior. Another bit that helps distinguish a berserker is this awesome pal cloak. Bit CA25 looks fantastic. I bet pretty much every Viking player will find a use for it. Moving on to the bodies. Just like with the Saxon models, the chainmail looks superb, with lots of small details like pouches and belts molded directly on. Now for the second half of the sprue. As you can see, unlike the Saxons with their head traumas, these guys are literally cut in half at the waist, waiting for you to glue them back together. And here are the 2 hats for our other potential berserker. A cool detail about the Viking sprue is that they have both axes and swords as hand weapon options. And by the way, those 2 models that can be built as berserkers can be armed to the teeth, dual-wielding axes. Moving on to our main sprue from which we'll build the bulk of our warband, the Viking Warrior sprue. Just a reminder, you get 3 identical sprues of these plastic promises of slaughter. The layout is very similar to the Saxon one. 8 bodies on each sprue, 4 are clad in chainmail, 3 are dressed in linen, and a single guy is wearing a gempzan. One distinctive detail from the Saxon sprue is, of course, the wide availability of glorious Dane axes. So, if your other warbands are suffering from a critical lack of giant axes for some reason, this is the sprue to pillage them from. As is tradition, we'll start with the hats. There are 17 unique hats on this sprue, so no 2 of your Vikings need to look alike. Unlike the Saxon sprues, there is a great variety of melee weapons here, including the before-mentioned Dane axes. A distinctive detail on both armored and unarmored bodies are the Mjolnir amulets hanging around their necks. As always, lots of small and crisp details. By the way, the solution Dan and I came up for skirmishers is very simple. Instead of javelins, you can snatch the small axes from the archer sprue and attach them to a warrior's belt. so instead of javelins, your skirmisher will be using throwing axes. This solution might not be perfectly historical, but since there are no other options in this set to build skirmishers, I think it's a great middle ground. Finally, we move on to the sprue with our missile infantry, the archers and slingers. I think I failed to mention in our Saxon unboxing that this sprue is designed to build 4 archers and 2 slingers. However, with a little tweaking you can build all 6 as archers. Only 4 will have quivers on their backs, but there are left hands that hold both a bow and arrows, so it still works perfectly. You could also build 4 slingers if you want, but keep in mind there are only 2 bags for sling stones on the sprue. Just a reminder, there are 20 unique heads here, so if you're looking for even more variety, this is the perfect sprue to borrow heads from the rest of your warband. As I mentioned in the previous episode, this sprue isn't faction specific, hence the name Dark Ages Archers and Slingers, so they fit perfectly into any existing warband. I'll leave you to check out the rest of the sprue details, and I'll be back in a moment to look at a couple of assembled miniatures. See you in a bit. The first model on display is, of course, the leader of this Viking Warband, the Jarl. I love the dynamic pose of this model. Looks like he's just parried a blow with his shield and is now swinging his sword to send some poor soul on a one-way trip to meet his ancestors. Next on the list is the Berserker, rocking this amazing looking bear pelt. I absolutely adore this pose. Looks like he's about to deliver a killing blow with that scary looking Dane axe, but a word of warning on assembly, guys. The axe is made of 2 parts, so I highly recommend using plastic glue. That will give you enough wiggle time to get both arms positioned correctly before it sets. Moving on to our Hirdman. I decided to give this guy 2 axes. Now, according to the Pillage rules, this doesn't mean he gets extra attacks like the Rust Warriors do, but he just looks so ridiculously cool, casually strolling towards his next victim with 2 axes at the ready. And he also reminds me of a particular model from CMON for House Greyjoy, the Raider Captain. While the scale is different, they are definitely giving on the same "what is that may never die" vibe. Here's our Bondi. No armor except for his trusty shield, but just as ferocious as his armored comrades. A very cool looking pose, though Dan and I are still arguing about whether that's the most effective way to grip a spear for a thrust. In any case, I'm very pleased with how he turned out, covering most of his torso with the shield while making that overhead spear thrust. The last gentleman for today is the Slinger. Even though these guys couldn't hit the broadside of a bar in terms of gameplay, I still recommend taking a couple of them. They are fast and can be your designated loot grabbers, all while harassing your opponent with the occasional lucky shot. And that's it for today's review, guys. The Rus and Norman Warband sets are scheduled to hit the review tables this Wednesday, so expect those videos shortly. Meanwhile, here's a little sneak peek of what's coming next on the channel in just a day or two. That video will be primarily focused on people newer to the hobby, but I think even veteran players will find something useful in it. So guys, thank you for watching, please consider giving a thumbs up to this video, subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment. Have a great week guys, and see you next time.